Hello internet, it is Daniel, and before I get into the video on is water wet, I want to tell you what this channel is going to be about. And I don't want to bore you, so I'm going to keep this short. Um, I'm making this video and doing these analysis right now is because I like to analysis on something. I like to see why something works like this, or why this is convincing, and I also like dissecting things. And one thing my pet peeves are is seeing a bad argument or not, people not looking at both sides of an argument. So when I make videos, I'm gonna try my best to give it a best analysis and thinking on things as small as is water is wet, which is very small, or as large as politics. And I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go with things that's really fun and lighthearted. So I really hope if you like how I do this video that you will subscribe. So let's get into it. Now, the debate over water is wet has been around for a while now. It's been coming back and forth, and some people have their own opinions saying why water is wet or not wet. And I guess I have to give my own 2 cents. Now, the question is water wet is a question that's affected on your perspective in upgrading. You most likely never been told the definition of wet when you were a kid. You mostly were told multiple examples of wet. You see, you might have peed yourself and your parents would have told you it was wet. Or you dropped water on your homework or juice on your homework and your parents told you it was wet. And those were your thing that you said was wet, right? You may have also said when something to your parents said leave something outside to dry. And those things, all those things help create the definition in your head what is wet and dry without even having to see a definition. Now those things may actually skew your definition or perspective on wet or dry. And like, let me give you an example. The word petrified. The first thing you think about is scared. But its original and intended meaning is not scared, but something to be turned into stone or stone-like. So petrified does not mean scared. Now as the definition changes, now it does because people are even using it, but it did not. Its original meaning was not that, and that's the same thing as with wet. People's definition on wet or dry are affected about what they've seen and what people are showing examples. When you heard petrified, people always say when someone's scared, you saw someone scared, they say you're petrified, but it really means that they're in a still state that they couldn't move. And that's what really what petrified was referring to. Not necessarily to fear, but that you couldn't move. So let's get on to how I'm gonna do this. First of all, I don't like doing a uneducated argument. I'm not gonna just say this and that and that and this. I want to give you an academic, and I hate to bring you back to school, but you got to think logically. So we're gonna do this logically. Now I'm gonna give you my little thesis, and I believe water is wet because it fits the definition of wet. And now the first thing that people are gonna say, how does it fit the definition of wet? There's no way it can fit the definition of wet. You are high and you don't know what you're thinking. You're completely nonsense and all the garbage stuff. But let's look at the definition of wet together, shall we? Now the definition of wet is covered or saturated with water or another liquid. Now as we look at the definition, let's think about it. Is water wet? Now, first thing that people say is water can't cover itself. Water can't be saturated in itself. And the first thing I want people to think is, first of all, covered. And the first thing I want people to think is fish and water wet? And I heard these people are saying all these arguments about is fish and water wet? And the first thing I always hear is a fish and water is not wet until it's in contact with air. And now I want you guys to think about it before we get into this. Why would people say that? Nowhere in the definition said that an object has to be in contact with air and water for it to be considered wet. It said it has to be just be covered in water or saturated in it or another liquid. So first of all, wet is definition on if an object is covered or saturated in water. It has nothing to do with air, but the very fact that you always see when something is wet is when something was dry and put water on it and was covered in it. That's why it's wet. It was not wet because air was blowing on it. It was wet because it had water on it covering it. So a fish, when you see a fish in water, even though it never touched the air, which I don't understand why people make this argument, even though it never touched the air, the fish in the water was wet because it's covered in water, right? So I'm gonna make this point. Think about water in a molecular level. In water, there is the hydrogen, or two hydrogen and one oxygen, and you see these water molecules, right? Now, let's make it fair. Let's make it like a clear. A water molecule can be wet, right? It's covered by other water molecules all the time, which fits the definition. Covered in water. So a water molecule can be wet. Can the water molecule itself be wet? That's the very, very important question. Can water itself be wet? And the very question is, we have to look at the word saturated. Now, what does saturated mean? If you go into the Google, it means absorbing or holding as much water or liquid as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, water molecule holds as much water as possible because it's water. Its water molecule is saturated in itself. And people are going to say, how can that be? That doesn't make any sense. Well, that's the thing. Something doesn't have to be dry to be wet. Something just has to be covered or saturated in water to be considered wet. And that's the only reason thing. Fire is hot. It doesn't have to be cold to be hot. It's hot. And that's the only thing. In the definition, there's no reason for this perspective. But the reason people having this difficulty having this is because your perspective. If you're always been told that, we've only been told that something is wet, is when something is either was dry initially or exposed to air, of course you're going to have that definition in your head. But in the definition, that's never been in there. The true definition is if something covered or saturated in water. Water is covered by water molecules, and water itself is saturated because it holds as much water as possible. It's water. Now, it can't get any wetter than it already is because it's water. If you put more water, it's going to stay the same wetness. It's water. But it's holding as much water as possible. The water itself is wet. That's what it is. I know people are trying to think of like it's like a trick question. It's about your intelligence. It's like all this and stuff. But no, that's not about intelligence and stuff. If you ask, can a fire burn itself? Well, of course. Fire can't burn itself because the definition of burn is have to do with something with a chemical change. A fire is already chemically, you can't chemically change it by putting more fire in it. It's just going to get larger. So that's a different story. But water, it's not the same thing. So that's my own 2 cents. Newer videos, I hope you guys like how I give my explanations. If it wasn't clear enough, I will try to clear it up probably before I post it. But I want people to think about it logically. Before you say is water wet and water is not wet, let's look at both sides of the debate. Alright, guys? And I know it was an idiotic debate, and I don't even know. Have you seen those people going crazy over this stuff? Anyways, that's why I believe water is wet. And I hope you guys can, give me your 2 cents. I know this is a short video and might not have been too in-depth as I wanted it to be, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And if you liked how I did this video, please subscribe. And I will make more videos, not necessarily about is water wet, but more interesting videos and more things that I feel I can take more time in. All right, have a nice day, and thank you for anyone that watches.